Welcome to Coffee and Sports, the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. As you can see, I am without Mo today. Mo has the day off, but don't worry, we have plenty of guests to get you through the next hour or so on your morning. So thank you for being here. However it is that you are joining us this morning, are you watching us live? Are you listening to us? Whatever it might be, if you have the ability to do so, please join us in the comments. Get in there. Smash that like button. Share us. Share me. Share our guests today. Share us to the world so other people in your life can be a part of what is going to happen this morning. And let me tell you what's going to happen this morning. I brought my tissues with me. I'm very sad. As a Yankee fan, it's been a rough week. I don't know what I'm watching, to be honest with you. It's not baseball, that's for sure. It's definitely not baseball. It's depressing. I wish I could say that we just had absolutely terrible players and that's why, but not all our players are bad. It's just uninspired, terrible baseball. But don't worry, Yankee fans, don't worry, because Aaron Boone comes out last night and he says it's not over. So if Harden Boone says it's not over, I guess I should feel better about myself this morning, but I don't. At this time, we're going to bring in our local baseball expert, the one and only JG. I know he's not going to say a damn thing that's going to make me feel better about Yankee baseball, but maybe he'll say some stuff about the future that will make me want to step away from the ledge. But considering the fact that his team just literally whooped us like we were a AA team, I'll give him a few minutes when he comes on to say his piece, and then hopefully he can take away the bias. But he earned it because it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, the smackdown that the Braves put on the Yankees this past 4 games. Welcome to the show, JG. Man, so I'll be honest. I did not watch a single inning of this. I have my app. All right, I have the updates. And the reason, JG, I didn't watch a single inning is by the 3rd or 4th inning of every game, the game was already over. Like, literally, all the updates, oh, Michael Harris hits a 2-run home run. Oh, Acuna hits a 3. Like, literally, that's all my updates were because the Yankees stopped scoring a game and a half into this series. Like, they were just like, we're not going to score runs anymore. We'll just let the Braves handle that. So even though yesterday's game was only 2-0, yeah, great. The pitching fine. If the Yankees scored runs, the Braves would have been like, all right, let's score some more. But I think Atlanta realized they're not going to score again today, so we're good. 2's enough. I get it. If you are the coach of the New York Yankees and you know you're probably getting fired at the end of the season, what more can you do? You can't. What are you supposed to do? You come to the podium and you're hoping for a miracle the next 40 games. You put on the brave face and you say things like, it's not over, guys. There's still 41 games left. We've seen other teams do these kind of. I get it. You have to do that if you're a manager. But at the same time, JG, Boone knows it's over, right? He doesn't actually think something's going to happen in the next 40 games.
Well, the fortunate side for the Yankees is that they are still within reach of a wild card. But again, we said, I said with you guys as well, the Bronx does not like wild card appearances. They want division titles. They want, to have the top team in the American League to compete in the ALCS and the World Series. A wild card is not going to make you fans. It's not going to make you friends in New York. So for Boone, he is technically right. It's not over because you are still within reach of a wild card position. But at the end of the day, as you said, it is in the back of his mind right now. Well, my days are numbered because in New York, I have to get to the ALCS minimum. Well, you're not getting to the ALCS with this team. Not happening. Now with how the Astros play, now how the Rangers play, not how the Orioles are playing. And, those are the 3 top teams in the American League. So you're not close to what your ultimate goal in New York is, and that is to be the last 2 teams standing in the American League to play for opportunity to play in the World Series. This is kind of what I've seen with this group, and I kind of bought into the hype at the beginning of this season that the Yankees are a good team, but I knew as well that they were very flawed. But I bought into, you have Judge still, you have some good pieces, but the problem that I didn't take into consideration is speaking about myself in this for the season, the rule changes that occurred hurt teams like the Yankees. And what I mean by that is older teams. This is a old roster in Major League Baseball. They went with the youth movement too, bringing in Anthony Volpe. Oswaldo Cabrera continues to get some opportunities. Gleyber Torres is not a young rookie prospect, but he's still relatively young, 26 years old. But most of your roster, if I'm looking at it right here, Judge 31, Garrett Cole's 32, Stanton 33, LeMahieu's 34, Rizzo I have right here, Rizzo's 33, Donaldson 37, Rodon is 30, Frankie Montes 30, guys who you're not playing, they're in their 30s. Majority of this core team is in their 30s. Look at the teams that are winning right now. Orioles, young team. Braves, young team. Rangers, young team. The only other team that's right now is kind of cussed on that older side is the Astros, but the continuity of that team has been together for 5-6 years of winning culture, and that's why you see the Astros continuing to do what they're doing. But the rule changes have excited to younger teams, younger rosters, and that's what you're seeing with the Orioles. As far as the American League East, they are taking advantage of what the rules are with the changes of the pitch clock and speeding up the game. And it's hurting teams like the Yankees, who are a older roster, who can't stay healthy on top of it. Well, you had Judge on the IL. You have Rodon, who's pitched maybe a handful of times more than I have this year. Donaldson's been on the IL back and forth. Rizzo's back in the IL back and forth. Montez back on the – and there's a lot of money. I'm looking at it right here, a lot of money that are sitting on the IL list and not really getting opportunities to play to help this team compete with the top teams in the American League and the American League East.
Now, JG, baseball is not like football in the sense that you can't just essentially retool in an offseason and expect an entire turnaround. I feel like there's a little more nuance when it comes to baseball because the Yankees aren't just going to find magically, young, talented players on the free agent list. That's not how that works, nor do they have the assets to go clean out their farm system this offseason to bring in young, talented players. Plus, you look at the fact that they have a lot of money, like you said, tied up into some of these older players, which, as we know in baseball, when you tie up the big money into some of these players, you're in it for a while. Good, bad, indifferent. I mean, Stanton, when they traded for him, they knew they were going to be in it for a while. They were hoping the benefit would be on the front end, that they would win a couple of World Series with Stanton on the front end, and they would deal with the back end. Well, it didn't happen on the front end, and now you're dealing with it on the back end, and that's just going to continue to get worse over the next few seasons. But as Yankee fan is looking out across the land today, and they're thinking, okay, Cashman's going to be back. They basically already said that. They're going to put all of this on Boone, even though I think Cashman shoulders a lot of this blame as well. But whatever, at least something's being changed most likely. So assuming they bring in a new manager, Cashman stays, what can they realistically do in one off season to not compete for a World Series next season, but to get back into a legitimate playoff contending team?
It's going to be difficult because I'm looking at the 2024 payroll for them. What they have currently on there, it's $188 million already for next season. You have LeMahieu's contract is on there for next year. Donaldson's on there, a little bit less money. I think Donaldson was making $6 million in 2024 compared to $21 million in 2023. So that does help reduce as far as what you could do. You could actually DFA Donaldson at the end of the season and take a smaller hit than what you would have been able to do this year. So that does help in essence. But Stanton on contract for next year. Obviously, Judge with a big contract that he got last season. You have Rizzo and Rodon on there that are all the bigger contracts that are already there. But $188 million already on the books for next season. There's not a lot you can do because, again, this is not George Steinbrenner running this team where he doesn't care. He'll write a check. It doesn't matter to help the team and get better. The sons of Steinbrenner don't think that way. So if they're already looking at $188 million and you're knowing you have a lot of holes to be able to bring on this team, how do you improve? I think they're going to have to continue with the youth movement. But the problem with that side is, and you know this as well, your farm system in New York is not good. It's not good. So where do you go? I think they're stuck. As I've been kind of saying about the Yankees, they're in baseball purgatory. They don't know which way to go right now. And there's not a lot that they can do to improve. You can't, if you spend more money on one or two players, well, that's not enough. We saw that already. You brought in Carlos Rodon. Rodon didn't do he's not done anything this year. He's been hurt most of the majority of the season. You signed Judge back, which you got your big bat, you got your captain. So that was a good thing that you were able to get him back for. But the moves that you made corresponding to that haven't panned out. What other moves are you going to do? On top of it, the free agent class of 2024, this all after the season for 2024, right? It's not a great class. Like, you need pitching. Starting pitching group, Aaron Nola, but he's very comfortable in Philadelphia. I don't see him leaving Philadelphia. He's probably the better pitcher in the class right there that you're going to have to try to go compete with the Phillies to get him. I don't think that's going to happen. Other than that, the starting pitching is very bare. So Garrett Cole's your number one. Severino is a free agent. You're probably going to bring him back next year just because he has been good at times. And the consistency side is always to question him, but he has been good at moments where it is. But that's going to be the biggest thing is you got to get pitching. And there's not a lot of free agent pitchers that can really make a difference for you unless you just try to get a little bit more mid-level guys and get depth, which I could see them doing that, but that's not a Yankee. Again, notice Yankee fans aren't going to be happy about that. That's just not their MO. They don't think that. They want the big splash. They need the big splash in New York. Getting a mid-level guy, a 3 or 4 quality pitcher might be better, but I don't see them really being able to do anything that's going to help them jump the Orioles, and I know the Rays are kind of being a little bit in flux right now, but jump the Rays, and even Toronto kind of being a better team. Are they going to do anything that's going to jump Toronto? I don't know. And they're just handcuffed themselves financially because of the money they have tied in already. And with the ownership group, with the Steinbrenner brothers, not really committed to spending money to improve the team as much as their father used to do.
So let's say the Yankees finish under 500 because that's where they currently are. So let's say, they go 18-22 the rest of the way. They finish 4 or 5 games under 500. What do you think finishing under 500 for the first time in forever in New York with Ohtani on the market, do you think, and I'm not saying Ohtani would even go to New York because I don't think he would, but do you think they would make him an offer that would be competitive with whatever other offers the Dodgers, who are most likely going to get him, are going to throw his direction? Because that would be the move, right? That would be the move to quench Yankee fan thirst, to look at it and be like, look it, we not only did we get you an ace to go with Cole and Rodon, we got you a bat to go with Judge. And that, Ohtani on the surface, even though there would still be many flaws, he would cover up for a little bit a lot of what's happening. Now, again, I don't think Ohtani is going to come, but if you are the Steinbrenner brothers, wouldn't that be logically, business-wise, the first thing you do? You throw out an offer knowing he's not going to come to you, and you make it a good offer, and you look at it and you say, listen, we offered him $600 million, whatever the number is, and then he didn't want to come to us. So now we have to go to plan B. But wouldn't that be the plan A, especially if he's not going to come anyways?
I'll put it this way. If every general manager in Major League Baseball does not – if a general manager does not offer Shohei Ohtani in the offseason, they deserve to be fired. He should receive 30 offers just because. Even though he may have 5 teams that he says, there's 5 teams I have listed. That's all I'm looking to listen to. Every team in Major League Baseball better call and just say, look, you may not want to come to us, but we're going to have to put an offer because if I don't, I can't go face my fan base at all. So, yes, the Yankees should make a phone call at least and say, what is the number? Maybe you don't like New York. Maybe you don't like the Yankees, but what is the numbers? That way we can at least say, we can go to our fans and that way they don't put my head on a silver platter, Brian Cashman, and I can say I at least made an attempt. It's the same thing with Juan Soto. If you're talking about for the Yankees, at least maybe make a phone call to Juan Soto in the offseason and say, hey, what could it be? The problem for Shohei in New York is you already have a DH. Stanton's not an outfielder anymore. He can't be healthy enough to really play outfield consistently. He is your DH. So how do you figure out how to be that contract that he's under is very bad. No team, if this was 6-7 years ago, you could have a team potentially take that chance to bring Stanton. But this is not the same Giancarlo Stanton. That contract is not worth making a trade for in essence. Even if I would say this, unless the Yankees want to eat money, which again, just talk about the Steinbrenner brothers, they don't want to do that. So you're kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place. You can make the attempt to get Shohei because yes, that pitching that he'll challenge Garrett Cole as your number one. But the bat is also what's valuable for him, and you already are stuck with an older guy, Giancarlo, who is your DH. And when he's not healthy, well, then you have Rizzo at times can be your DH. You have Donaldson can be a DH if he's still on the roster for 2024. But you have a log jam at that spot. So it kind of makes things a little bit difficult unless you cut ties with players, you DFA them and release them. Then you might open up opportunity to do so. But I don't see that. I don't see that being the case. That's just, there's been a lot of talk that New York teams in general, both Mets and Yankees, are not even on the list for Shohei. But again, if you're Cashman, you better make a phone call at least to see that, hey, just for the fun of it, here's my offer. And if you like it, great, let's talk. If you don't like it, I tried. I can go tell my fan base that I made the attempt.
Listen, if I'm Cashman, I'm finding out what the number is that the Dodgers are offering, all right, or at least the ballpark, and I'm offering $100 million more. And when the Steinbrenner is yelling, I'm like, he's not going to come anyways. We need to do this to save face. And then I'm just going to hope he comes. I'm going to hope he comes and takes the money. Then I'm going to call Miami and be like, listen, give me a bag of chips. I'm going to give you back Stanton. Let him retire with you. Let him retire as a Marlin. We'll pay the entire damn contract. Like, we got to start doing things because, let's be honest, we're looking at 4 or 5 years of garbage if we keep up this rate. So, I don't know. And if I'm Cashman, I'm happy I still have a job. I don't know how I stay employed these past 3 or 4 years in New York with what the team I've been putting on the field. So, at this point, Cashman should feel like he's playing with house money. Start making some moves because it can't get any worse. You're about to finish under 500.
Well, and that's the thing that, Cashman has made moves to what the ownership allows him to do. That's why I think he's going to keep his job. The worst case for Brian Cashman is that he just gets reassigned. I think he's not leaving the franchise. Like, he gets reassigned to be team president and they bring a new general manager in there. Cashman's done so much for the organization. And I think that's partly what they're following their father's, wishes of what Cashman can be in the organization possibly. But again, Cashman, when he had a open checkbook under George, brilliant. When he has limitations on what he can do at times, well, just like any general manager, they're going to struggle to make sure that they make the moves necessary to make your team better. And that's what's kind of we just never experienced or never really seen a long period of time of the New York Yankees being a limited checkbook team. And I know that's such a hypocritical statement because they're still top 5 in payroll in baseball, top 6 in payroll. But again, we're so used to the Yankees being the number 1 team in payroll, not number 5 or number 4 or number 6. But so you're looking at an aspect of that side of what Cashman's done. Cashman he got Judge back. If you lost Aaron Judge, different story that we're talking about here because that goes to you as the general manager. But he brought in Garrett Cole. He did bring in Giancarlo. Giancarlo had a good couple of years before the injuries just got piled up. So Cashman has done DJ LeMahieu for a while. For a short period of time, he was really good for them. He brought in Anthony Rizzo, who showed up last year in the trade deadline and so he's made moves to help this team. They got old. They got old, and you've bared the farm system to where you can't make moves anymore. That's why they sat on their hands this trade deadline because their teams look at it and says there's not a prospect you have that excites me, and you're not going to eat money for me to take a bad contract. What's the best part for me to make a move with you? There isn't. So that's why they had no choice, and I think is that on Cashman? Yes, but is it not on Cashman at the same time because he had to make moves during those previous seasons to better the team at that moment? Yeah, he's done his job. So that's why I kind of look at it and say that he's being absolved right now for the of blame. And Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone has just worn out his welcome at this point. He's more of a headache, and I think that's just they're just putting up with him now for another month and a half, and then saying, okay, thanks, Aaron. We appreciate the home run against Tim Wakefield. Best of luck to you moving forward.
And before he goes, I just want to see at least one or two more umpire blowups. I really do. And I just want to be bigger and better. We've already seen the impersonation act. Like I want to see him bring out props, bring out a mask. One's like, just come on. You're going away. You're just good for the umpire blowups now. Just make them better. Make them more entertaining before you get out of here.
Well, come out with the Bobby Valentine mustache too.
Yeah. Do it all. All right, JG, rapid fire. I'm going to throw a few teams at you that may or may not be in the playoff race still. Their fan bases think they are. There's a little bit of optimism. Just rapid fire, give me your perspective. Let's start off with the San Diego Padres. 21% chance of making the playoffs today.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They've already had it. Talking about Juan Soto just a little bit ago. Juan Soto's already questioned this team's heart and effort. In the midst of being only 4.5 games back out of the wild card right now in mid-August. But when you have that, if your effort is being questioned in the middle of a run for a postseason, no, I don't. I think there's just too much issues right now. There's too many question marks for that team. They won't make the playoffs now.
Cleveland Guardians under 500, but still in striking distance of the division because the division is terrible.
I hate this division. I absolutely hate it. No, Cleveland has been one of the most disappointing teams in my eyes. I don't want to put them as the top disappointing, but top 5 because I feel like they were. I mean, again, they won the division last year. They were a better team last year. They just had a lot of issues that it just never worked out for them. So the offense has been which the offense was supposed to be the best part of this team with pretty good pitching. Shane Bieber being hurt doesn't help them, but the offensive side has been really disappointing for the Guardians. So no, they don't make the playoffs.
They're on this list just because Ohtani stayed. It looked decent coming out of the All-Star break, and then a week or so later, they were kind of right back to where they were. They're under 500. The Angels?
No, as well. I'm not buying. I didn't buy into the moves they made at the trade deadline. I know that, again, talking about ownership, we talk about with the Yankees, but the same thing with the Angels. They made moves just to make moves to tell the fan base, we're going to do what we can for Shohei. We're going to do what we can for Mike Trout. And we're going to make moves, bring in Giolito, bring in a couple bats to help the offense. But they weren't good moves. They weren't the moves needed. They made rash decision moves at the moment. So it wasn't enough. It's not going to be enough. 7 games back of the wild card. With not a lot really say it's exciting to make a move for postseason play. I think they missed the playoffs, and on top of that, I'll throw it out there, they're going to lose Shohei Ohtani in the process too.
You know who they didn't ask about those moves with the Angels? Mike Trout, because his posture would have been, I've seen this before. when they were bringing all those players in, can't you just see Mike Trout in the back smoking a cigar being like, it's not going to matter, guys. They're going to win. We don't win around here. It's wild.
Which in that process too, Shohei leaves, Trout should ask for a trade and get out of LA too. And I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to end up being happen where their Angels will end up tearing it down completely. And it's going to be, again, talking about bad contracts that the Yankees, Angels have a few bad contracts too. So they're going to have to figure out how to be able to tear it down. And Trout's just going to say, enough, I'm done with it.
The Arizona Diamondbacks, they're hovering around 500, 20% chance to make the playoffs. The remaining schedule is under 500 of the teams they play over the last 40. I know.
I was very high on the Diamondbacks for a good portion of the season. I think the youth movement is in the right direction, but I think they're going to fall short this year. I don't think they're going to have enough. I think next season, 2024, they're going to be a very scary team, especially if they make a couple of moves that betters them and puts them in position with the Dodgers in the West. I think they're just a year early. And I think they're in a better position than the teams that you've already asked me on. They're in a much better position for next year, particularly. And the fact that they're only a game and a half back of the wild card right now is a positive sign, despite that they've been a struggle the last couple of weeks. That's a positive sign in Arizona. I don't think they have enough to make a run for the wild card right now, but the future is bright in Arizona. But I think in 2023, they missed the playoffs.
So the Reds are struggling in the month of August, but they're over 500. They're well within striking distance of a playoff spot. Can they turn around their last 2 weeks and right the ship and push into the playoffs?
This is where I finally break the streak of the teams not making it. I think the Cincinnati Reds do make it. So kind of the same thing I said about Arizona. The youth movement is full taken over, and there's a lot of exciting players in Cincinnati. I think they have enough as far as with the offense. They do score some good, they score amount of runs that are necessary, and they're pitching better right now. They're getting some good quality innings out of their young pitchers. And being able to say, I know they wish they probably could have gotten a trade for a starting pitcher, but they don't want to lose the youth that they have, being a top farm system, one of the top farm systems, and bettering their future, because this division for the next 3-4 years is going to be wide open, I believe. So the Reds have enough. I think they have enough. They're going to do enough offensively to score. They're going to pitch well enough with a schedule that's pretty favorable in this instance too. And I think they're going to make a jump. They're going to jump one of the teams that are currently in the wild card spot right now. They're going to make a jump and get into the 3 wild card teams. I think the Cincinnati Reds break they get their opportunity into the dance and make it to the wild card.
Well, if they jump someone, that means someone's going to fall out. And one of those teams that's currently in the wild card position is the Miami Marlins. Is the Miami Marlins going to be the team they jump, or do the Marlins hang on and find their way to the playoffs?
Marlins, no. I don't think they're going to make it. Kind of the same thing as far as Arizona. They're in the right direction, and that's something I haven't said about a Marlins team in quite a while, just because of how their organization is run. That they sell off, quicker than they sell off quicker than you can blink in Miami. They didn't do that this year, and I think that for a fan base that, I guess doesn't really care about baseball at all that much, as we see from the attendance, but they didn't sell. They kind of added a few pieces here and there, so they're in a good position for the future to add players in the offseason. I think they're just a little too short right now versus the teams that are ahead of them in the wild card, and with the Reds kind of being a little bit favorable schedule, Miami having to compete against the Braves and Phillies still in this division, it's going to be a little bit tougher for them. I think the Marlins fall short in 2023, but they can be a dangerous team in 2024.
It's going to hurt me to even say this. I don't even want to talk about this team making the playoffs, because I don't feel like we should be having this conversation. But as I look up, they're approaching 10 games over 500. They could be there within a week or so. They're not that far back in the wild card. They only have a 17% chance this morning of making the playoffs, but that is the Boston Red Sox.
Boston Red Sox, no. They're kind of. I saved your morning right there.
You did.
They're kind of in the same boat. I think they're a little bit better positioned than the Yankees are right now. But again, the expectations and the flaws of this team, and there's a lot. Talking about the Yankee flaws, there's almost as many flaws in this roster in Boston as there is in New York, and that's kind of it's a topsy-turvy AL East this year than what we've normally seen in the history of it. The Red Sox, that they're getting better, they're playing better. They have they've had moments where they look pretty good, but look at the teams ahead of them in the wild card, just in the wild card itself, they don't match up well. They do not match up well enough. They don't pitch well enough. They don't score consistently enough to get to the Astros and Blue Jays, Rays, Mariners. Like, you look at those teams that they have moments where they can score. They pitch really well at times. Red Sox don't do that as consistently to be a wild card team, to be a postseason team. I don't think the Red Sox are going to be able to make it this year. Depending on certain moves that they make next year, maybe, but there's some things they're going to have to figure out in Fenway for Boston, just as much as they're going to have to figure out in the Bronx and New York too.
Listen, as a Yankee fan, if we're going to sit here and be in misery, I will gladly have Boston fans sit here with us. I'm okay. Baltimore fan, you've waited a long time for this. All right, you do your thing. I will gladly sit here at the bottom and compete with Boston fan, and we can be miserable together. JG, before we get out of here today with you, let's jump to college football real quick and hit on a couple of things there. First thing is there was a fight. There was a fight in Colorado practice the other day, and Coach Prime was upset with his players. And I know what you're thinking, listeners. You're like, well, of course he's upset. You don't want your guys fighting in practice. Guys could get hurt. Silly things happen that way. No. Coach Prime was upset because some of his players walked away from the fight. He brought his guys together and said, if you have teammates fighting, you're all in the fight. There's not some of you who are going to fight and some of you who are going to walk away from the fight. if you boys are fighting, you're all fighting together. Now, JG, in my mind, now I'm just like jumping to like week 4 of the college football season. You know, high expectations for the Colorado coming out. It isn't quite there. You're 1-3. You're losing, about to go to 1-4. Frustration boils over. You know, you have a D-back, get into it with a wide receiver. And now I'm just seeing the entire Colorado bench clear. Because Coach Prime said, if you ain't going to fight with your players, you ain't going to be here. Is it just talk? Like, what is Coach Prime doing?
I think it's more subjective. I think it's more of the mindset that he's wanting. He said he's changing the culture of Colorado football, which for 20 plus years there hasn't really been a culture. So looking at it in the aspect of maybe I know he probably means literally, because that's what Deion Sanders is. He's a very literal person at times, and he has been in moments where he can speak figuratively on top of it, but you kind of look at it this way of, hey, you're gonna, it's you're a team. So if your brother is fighting, go fight with your brother. Would I rather that as a coach, figuratively speaking that way? Yes. But for what he's trying to accomplish in Colorado, changing cultures and showing that, hey, this the how and the why of what Colorado football has been for so long, that is unacceptable in my regime as head coach. You're going to have to show me you have fight, because again, I know the Pac-12 is going to be changing all over the direction. They're going to be Colorado's going to the Big 12 here next year, but you're sending a message for one more Pac-12 season for Colorado, which you have USC still, you have Oregon still, you have the top teams in that conference. Send a message to the Big 12. If you're Colorado, if you're Coach Prime, send a message to the Big 12 saying, hey, we're coming. And I know you're a little bit weaker because you don't have Texas and OU anymore. The top team right now is going to be Oklahoma State and TCU. We're coming next year. You're going to be in a dogfight with us for the duration of the Big 12 here pretty soon. But we're going to send a message to USC, to Oregon, to the top teams in the Pac-12 one more season, and saying the days of Colorado being a pushover and a walkover are done. Fight. You're going to have to fight us. So the literal side of Coach Prime, as a coach myself, I think that's a little iffy. The figuratively speaking of fighting with your brother to assure that the culture is changing, I'm all for. I don't think really with a couple weeks left until the season starts, you really want fights. I'll go to LSU. Brian Kelly, there was a big fight that took place at LSU, and he, my goodness, the reports that he ripped the team for fighting. Basically saying, hey, yeah, look, you got the fight in you, but don't fight there. I wouldn't want my players, because again, what's a broken hand? You're out for majority of the season, if not the season, just because you punch a freaking helmet in football. I think a little bit smarter on how to use your words, which again, Deion Sanders has never been one to hold back on his words and speak literally and when he should be speaking figuratively. But when you're trying to change the culture, sometimes you got to go a little bit to the extreme, and that's what he's doing right now.
And JG, it wasn't that long ago that, you could wake up on a Sunday morning and, Pac-12 football was a thing. Those days are pretty much done. After this season, there might technically be a Pac-12. Who's going to be in it? Who's watching it? These are all questions we can ask each other. But let me ask you broad spectrum. We know what colors you bleed. We know where your allegiance is. But looking at college football as a whole and what it's going to look like next season and the next couple of seasons after that, are you happy with the direction that college football is going in? Or do you fall on the traditional side and you want to see, to the best of their ability, 4 or 5 different conferences trying their best to be power conferences, when I don't know if college football ever really had 4 or 5 legitimate power conferences? But you talk to a traditionalist and they make it seem like it was close at one point. Do you like where we're going? Do you think we're going in the wrong direction?
So my answer to that, and I've had conversations with people about the NCAA and where we're at in college sports as a general. I have an answer that's a 2-part answer that can contradict itself. And I'm just going to explain that real quick. So the landscape of sports right now, I am not a fan of what's happening. I am not a fan of having a team. I do like the traditions of rivalry games. I like the traditions of and the pageantry of college football. And that's what it's been for the history. There's just the pageantry and traditions, the rivalries that you've had for so many years. It's built up. Even for bowl games, you've had the Pac-12 and Big Ten bowl game and the Rose Bowl. That's basically going to be done now. You have the Big Ten and the SEC and the Sugar Bowl for a good portion, where you have some different matchups that you look at and see. Those are just about done. So the pageantry of it, the traditions of it, which being an SEC guy and an LSU guy, we're built on traditions. We are built on the rivalries, and you can go and look at LSU, Bama, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. You look at to that aspect, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, the Battle of the Golden Boot, Arkansas and LSU. Like, it's built to be what it is for the SEC conference. Is we are focused on our traditions, and I do like that the SEC. I know we brought in Oklahoma and Texas. We brought in A&M and Missouri years ago too. You're kind of sticking it. You're finding ways to keep it together to make sure that you're not losing sight of what's important in college football. I think adding USC and UCLA to the Big Ten, I think that muddles that up a little bit. And what Big Ten football has always been tradition-wise, and you still have the Ohio State-Michigan game, Michigan State game. You have the Paul Bunyan's Axe game, but you kind of throw in a Penn State and USC. Does that sound really good? That doesn't really sound like a Big Ten game to me. It just kind of sounds thrown off. So the traditions, I don't like that we're losing sight of that. Now, where I contradict myself, anything that destroys the NCAA, I am all for, because the NCAA is the catalyst of why this is taking place. And what I mean by that is the conferences have figured it out, and the SEC being the leader of it for a long time, and now the Big Ten is realizing too, we don't need the NCAA. The NCAA needs us. And we're trying to figure out how to divide the money up to keep it away from the NCAA. That's what this is really mostly about. Is you're finding ways, like USC knows Pac-12 is getting screwed in their contracts and getting screwed out of their money because, again, they're out on the West Coast, not their fault. The TV contracts are okay, and they're having to pay a lot to the NCAA about what they're doing to be able to go about. But they go to the Big Ten, more money because it is more on the East Coast side. You're in the middle of the country side of it, so you're going to get a little bit more money out of that with it, more divided money broken down for you. But at the same time, you're adding 18 teams. You're going to get to, at some point, we're going to have 20 to 24 team conference here pretty soon. And the SEC and Big Ten look at it and says, okay, now how do we go about where we just do our own thing and we screw the NCAA out of this and they don't take a cut of what that's what we're heading for. And I'm for it. I'm a former NCAA athlete myself. And looking at it and how the NCAA has really ran this for so long, now they have no clue. And it started with NIL that they have proven they have no idea what they're doing, and they cannot stop this machine that the SEC, the Big Ten has created. And you're going to figure out what the ACC is going to do. The Big 12 is adding teams, and they're getting a little bit better, a little bit bigger in their side of it. So you have the ACC in flux, you have the Pac-12 in flux, but you have the two big conferences that are the richest conferences that are pulling the strings here, and they're going to start really making decisions how to make this better, where the NCAA gets nothing. And I'm 100% all for it. As long as the NCAA dies, because I think they are just absolutely the worst of anything in sports, and that's saying a lot. As long as they die in this process, I'm for it 100%. So that's where I stand on it. But again, keep the traditions in college football. It's 150 plus years of traditions built. Love it, keep it, do whatever you can for it. But at the same time, screw the NCAA. Let's figure out how to kill them off, and then we can get real. We can get some good action with these conferences being able to take control, and the athletes also getting taken care of probably a little bit better in the process too.
Hey, you heard it here first. He is not loving the NCAA. JG is leading that train. Kill the NCAA. JG, always a pleasure to have you on here. Coffee and Sports in the Morning, sir. We will see you back here next week. Thank you for stopping by today.
Always, man. I always enjoy it. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to have JG on the show. And hey, I love to hear anyone who wants to say the Red Sox are going to be just as miserable as the Yankees for any extended period of time, because Yankee fan, it is miserable right now. But coming in to join us, because, I don't like being here all by myself. I would sing to you right now. I would sing to you all by myself, but I'm not going to do that, because it wouldn't go well. But I'm just telling you, I don't like being all by myself. So right now, I'm going to bring in my guy, Brett. Brett's going to come in here, and we're going to wrap up the show talking a little bit of basketball and a little bit of NFL. So welcome to the show, my guy, Brett.
Hey, how's it going? We can sing a duet now.
We can duet, my guy. Yes, we can, sir. Brett, how are you today, my guy?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk some basketball, football. We're going to have a great time.
We are going to have a great time. And if it's going to be a great time, why not start with James Harden? Because it looked – so 2 days ago, it looks like James Harden is faced with two options. He can either try to be miserable and just cause chaos and disruption and try to force his way out of Philly, or he can look at it and be like, my contract's going to basically force me to play 30 days after the season starts, because if I don't, I now lose the option to go where I want to go next season, because that's what's built into my contract. So I can be very noisy for up to a month after the season begins, and then I have to come back with my tail between my legs and play, so I can still be a free agent next season and go where I want to go. That's where we kind of thought this was going. But no, not when you're James Harden, because now he's being Instagrammed or tweeted, or can we still call it tweeted? It's called X now. Is it X? I don't know. I don't know the new terminology for what was formerly called Twitter, but he's being reached out onto social media by Dwight Howard, who apparently is buying a team in Taiwan. Who knew? Literally, who knew? He wants James Harden to come play and be the face, the star. I don't know. But he wants him on his team in Taiwan. Now, it doesn't sound like he has a team yet. It sounds like this is something that's like in the process. I'm sorry, I don't know how the Taiwanese basketball teams work. So I don't know where Mr. Howard is in that process. But apparently that's an option for James. And then James comes out and says, hey, the Chinese fans deserve to see me play. I would love to play for a year. He said a year. Well, that's interesting, because he currently has a year left on his deal in Philly. Is he gonna go play in China this year? And is that what the new threat is? Is he threatening to not play in the NBA this year and join some basketball team in? What is going on, Brett? Is this all noise? Is this all getting uncomfortable, like he referred to a month ago on Instagram? Is this all part of the exit strategy for James Harden? Because I can't keep up with it.
I think it is. I think you're looking at a situation where he's just trying to get his way out of Philly, and at this point, he's trying anything. So it's, hey, you can keep me under contract, but I'll go play for China for a year. I don't think he actually will. I think this is all just a ploy. Could he play for China at this point with James? I don't know. He's very committed to he's very committed. When he wants out, he's very committed. I'll give him that. Like with Houston, when he wanted out, we watched him go onto the basketball court. He played, but you can tell he was just mailing it in. And I feel like if he steps on the court for Philly, we're going to see that version of James Harden. He'll catch the ball, he'll pass it, he'll watch the offense. He won't try on defense. It'll just be real ugly, real quick. But I think at the end of the day with James Harden, I think this whole thing with China, it's all just a ploy. He could go there. He could dominate. If J.R. Smith can put up 62 points and 22 rebounds in games in China, I have no doubt that James Harden could probably put up quadruple doubles at this point. But I don't think it would be fun for him. And I think this is all just one big ploy to try to force Philly's hand and get him out of there. And at this point, Philly just get him out of there so we don't have to hear from him again for a while.
The most committed James Harden is a James Harden who wants to get off a team. That is the highest level of commitment we have seen from James Harden consistently throughout his career. Once he decides, I don't want to be on this team anymore, the level this man, I wish in the playoffs, James Harden could take half of the style of commitment he has to get off a team and put that into on-the-floor production in a playoff series. Because if he could do that, he might end up being one of the greatest NBA players of all time, because the way he invests in getting out of town is next level. It's extraordinary. It is Jordan-esque, the way he puts the time and effort and dedication into getting himself out of a city. If he could just have that focus during a 7-game play, if he could have had that focus last season during their 7-game playoff series, I think he would have found himself in the conference finals. I think he may have made a push to be in the finals. But no, he just, the playoffs come around and it's not the same energy. It's not the same Harden. So does he go to, I don't know. I part of me wants to see it. Part of me wants to see James Harden play in China this year and average, 72 points a game. Because how wild would that be for this story? If he just goes to China and is literally just every morning or afternoon, however it translates on SportsCenter, since they're like a half a day ahead of us or whatever. But every time he plays a game in China, it's just SportsCenter. Harden dropped 74 tonight. Harden dropped 58 with 18 rebounds. Like, that's what I want to see. That's the kind of stuff that I'm here for with James Harden. We've already seen the fat suit. Don't bring back version 2 of the fat suit. I want to see new things because you can't rest on your laurels. We've seen fat suit James Harden. This level of commitment, I really think he can bring us to different levels. He can show us new tricks in the playbook. And I think this could be great. And I think he should. I think he should do both. I think he should play in China. I think he should be like part owner of this Taiwan team with Howard. And I think some days when he has days off in China, he should fly to Taiwan and play in those games too. I'm here for it, Brett. I'm literally all here for it.
I was going to say Harden and Howard in Taiwan would be like Nash and Stoudemire on crack. They would be the greatest lob threat of all time by far. I think your tallest Taiwan center I think they average at like 6'6", so nobody would really stop that.
I'm all here for it. All right, Brett, let's jump to the NFL. That's where we're going to go to wrap up the show today. We got a couple of things to discuss, and we're going to start with Brock Purdy. And Dallas Cowboy fan, listen, I don't empathize with you a lot, but I'm going to empathize with you today because I'm guilty of this as well. I have talked a lot about the interceptions that Dak Prescott is throwing in camp. I have talked about it in the morning. I have talked about it in the evening. I talk about Dak's picks as often as Dak throws picks. And it's a lot. And I've been talking about it a lot. But maybe I should also be talking about Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy is also throwing picks. 10 of them to be exact. 10 interceptions since the start of camp. And to be fair, Cowboy fan, you're right. Nobody is talking about Brock Purdy and the picks he is throwing. So, Brett, let me ask you this. Are we, as a whole, because let's be honest, you look at the power rankings, you look at people who are predicting how the NFC West is going to shake out, and for the most part, people have anointed San Francisco as the winners of that division. They have one of the best rosters in the National Football League on paper, outside of the quarterback situation. They have a stockpile of weapons offensively. They have a stockpile of playmakers defensively. But are we overlooking a little bit, based on his performance last year as a rookie quarterback, as someone who kind of took the NFL by storm, as someone who didn't have a lot of tape on him because he was the last pick in the NFL draft? Are we putting too many eggs in the Brock Purdy basket? And is it possible that he might actually be a B minus, C plus quarterback, and that's his ceiling as opposed to his floor?
I think so. I think we're going to see we're just going to see a much, not necessarily worse version of Brock Purdy, but I think we're going to see what Brock Purdy has just been this entire time. I think he'll be about an average to below average quarterback this year. You're talking about a guy who he took the league by storm, but started to struggle once teams started to adjust to him in the second half of the year. like the offense wasn't as potent. And now you're going to be asking a guy who was the last pick in the draft, who started to slow down in the second half of that run, coming off an injury to his throwing arm, of all things. Now you're going to expect him to lead you on a deep playoff run? I don't think so. I think he's going to really fall back down to earth this year. And I think the quarterback room as a whole is what's going to hold the 49ers back. I saw the reports that he's thrown 10 interceptions in camp. And I think the biggest issue with that almost isn't necessarily the interceptions, but it's the fact that Sam Darnold and Trey Lance haven't been able to outplay him. They haven't been able to win that starting spot. Like, you have a guy who apparently can't throw the ball to his own team. Well, I guess he technically is in camp, but I'm starting to think that Sam Darnold might not be Steve Young because he can't outplay that. And Trey Lance he just doesn't fit that system. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. But yeah, I think we're going to be looking at. I don't think Brock Purdy's it, and I don't think you're looking at a situation where none of the quarterbacks are it. And this isn't the 2001 Ravens where you have an all-time defense to carry them. I think they're going to be very good, but I don't think they'll hit that historic level to be able to carry your team all the way to the Super Bowl. So I think they'll still win the division or at least come in second, but I think they'll make the playoffs and then they'll fall short, and it's just going to come down to they don't have enough at QB.
For the sake of Mo and all the other Niner fans out there, I really hope that Brock Purdy is Dak Prescott or, he is that B to B plus guy, because if he's not a Kirk Cousins and I really do think that Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, they're your prototypical B to B plus guys. 2 or 3 times a year, you might get an A minus performance out of them. Once a year, they might go toe to toe with a great quarterback, and win or lose, they looked great in that game. But the other 13 or 14 games, that you're getting a B to a B plus quarterback. And we've seen that be good enough to win divisions. Kirk Cousins wins divisions. Dak Prescott wins divisions. We've seen that be good enough to win playoff games. Dak's won playoff games. But we haven't seen that be good enough to win Super Bowls unless the rest of the talent around you is just so much better. It's just A plus talent across the board to kind of carry that position. But I think as a 49ers fan, if Brock Purdy is a B to B plus guy, if he is on the same level as a Dak Prescott or a Kirk Cousins, you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. But here's my fear. My fear is, what if he's more of a C plus, B minus quarterback? What if he's even a tier below Dak and Kirk Cousins? You wasted all that capital to bring in Trey Lance. That was a failure. I'm not going to call Trey Lance a bust because I think that Trey Lance is talented. I think that he is coachable. I think that in a system that is tailored for him, and that's not what this is. Kyle Shanahan did not retool his system in San Francisco to fit Trey Lance's skill set. They were hoping that Trey Lance was going to come in and fit with Kyle Shanahan's system. And I think it's fair to say he hasn't. And James Jones, former Green Bay Packer, he was talking about this yesterday on the Herd with Colin Cowherd. He was at training camp. He watched Trey Lance. And what were his comments? His comments were, everything looks too fast for him. He's not processing what he's seeing on the field. The throws, every throw. He said every throw. Every throw is coming out late. That's not what you want to hear for a guy who's been in this system as long as Trey Lance has been in this system. It's okay to still have growing pains. He's only played 7 games total. He's only started 7 games, combining preseason and regular season. 7 games worth of experience. And some of those games, he didn't even play the entire game. That being said, he's been in this system long enough to at least kind of understand what the offense needs to look like. Granted, when you're going against a good defense, it's not always going to look pretty. But when every throw is coming out late, when things are happening so fast in front of you, you're never making it consistently to your second read because it took you too long to process what is happening, and then you see your first read, and now it's too late. Now you got to get rid of the ball. When that stuff is still happening on a regular basis, it's one of two things. Either Lance doesn't have it or the system isn't working. And I'm going to say he just doesn't fit with the system. So you have Trey Lance, who doesn't have a future in San Francisco, in my opinion. Sam Darnold is not going to be your future starting quarterback in San Francisco. So if it isn't Brock Purdy, if the real Brock Purdy is actually a B- C+ quarterback, which I don't think is enough. I don't think that tier quarterback is going to get you where you need to go consistently in San Francisco. What now? Because, Brett, you're not going to be bad enough to draft a good quarterback. They're not going to win only 2 or 3 games this year. They're going to win 8, 9, 10, 11 games because the rest of the roster is that good. So if Brock Purdy really is a C+ quarterback, this could legitimately stall this franchise for the next 2 or 3 years. And they're just going to be stuck almost in that territory that Pittsburgh was in for a while, where you had Ben those last couple of years where clearly Ben was past his prime. But also you were Mike Tomlin doesn't finish below 500. So all those years where you're like, man, is it time to move on from Ben? Now you're like, to who? Because we're never going to be bad enough to draft one of the best quarterbacks coming out. And it's not that often you see quality quarterbacks become available in the free agent market. So if this doesn't turn out the way San Francisco fan wants it to turn out, we could see the Niners stuck in kind of a purgatory for a few years. And I hope that's not the case, but that could end up being where we end up. And that would just be unfortunate. Almost as unfortunate for Arizona Cardinal fans. Somebody who's clearly not a Cardinal fan decided to point out on social media yesterday that the Arizona Cardinals are favored to win 0 games this 0, not 1. Every other team in the NFL is favored at least 1 time. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who's going to be their quarterback? Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, doesn't matter. They're favored to win a game. At least 1. Other dumpster fires in the league are favored to win at least 1 game. Not this team. Brett, talk to Cardinal fan this morning. Is there a game on their schedule they can actually win?
So I think that they will accidentally win like 1 or 2. I don't think
said accidentally.
Listen, I made a prediction yesterday in the chat, and I could absolutely see it happening. I think the Cardinals will come out. They'll absolutely, they'll beat Washington in week 1. That's my bold prediction. They'll come out and McCoy will catch everybody off guard. They'll somehow smoke Washington in week 1, and then they'll finish out like 2-15 the rest of the way. Because this team just is not, it's not good. This offense is just really, really atrocious. Like, we had an offense last year. They ranked 21st in total yards. We had an offense that ranked 21st in run yards. They were 17th in passing, and they just got significantly worse. Gone is DeAndre Hopkins. They lost AJ Green, which granted he didn't do much for them last year, so I'm not worried about that. Gone is like Andy Isabella, and now your receiving room is Hollywood Brown, Michael Wilson, Zach Pascal, and Rondell Moore. You can argue that the second best receiving option on that team is Zach Ertz, which isn't good at this stage in Ertz's career. So I don't think it's going to be a good football team. I think they're going to be fighting for a really high draft pick next year, but I have a hunch that they're going to come out and they're going to win week 1, and they're just going to smoke Washington, and everybody's going to be like, oh, well, they're not going to be as bad as we thought, and then they're going to lose the next 8 games in a row.
So they got the Commanders week 1. Now remember, not favored in any of these. They got the Commanders week 1. They got the Giants week 2. They're not going to beat the Cowboys. They're not going to beat the Niners. They're not going to beat the Bengals. They got the Rams on their schedule. They got the Browns on their schedule. They got the Falcons. They have the Houston Texans on their schedule. They got the Bears on their. These are not all great teams. It's not like they have the first or second or third most difficult schedule in the NFL, and you couple that with the fact that they're one of the worst or second worst teams in the league. They have not great teams. Like, apparently people think they're that bad. because they have not great teams on their schedule this year. And you can't make them a pick versus the Houston Texans?
Nah, I think they're going to be bad, but I feel like they should at least be favored against the Texans.
Come on.
Like, I feel like they should at least have that game. I think they'll beat the Texans. That'll be their second win of the year.
Now, I will have to say things will obviously change with the quarterback situation. If QB1 comes back healthy and actually plays this season, that could impact some of the games towards the end of the season. Towards the end of the season, they have the Bears in there. They have the Rams in there. They have the Texans in November. So depending on if QB1 comes back and actually plays for them, that might impact some of those favorited or not favorited ideas. But as for right now, I'm sorry, Arizona Cardinal fan, but apparently you are going 0-17, which, there's a silver lining to everything, Brett. If that's the case, congratulations, because you got yourself a brand new shiny quarterback that could easily be your franchise quarterback for a decade and a half to come. So if you suffer through 0-17, I guarantee you that there is sunshine on the other side of that. It's just going to be a long season if you have to lose 17 straight games.
And of course, with that number one pick too, if you because I know you just signed Kyler to that big deal, so even if you don't want Caleb Williams, you have a nice trade asset. Flip that for multiple future first, seconds. So
and we've seen Arizona do this. Don't forget, they drafted Josh Rosen in the top 10. And, or maybe top 15, I forget what it was. But when he was drafted, remember Josh Rosen telling the world, you will regret this. I should not have gone this late. Everyone's going to regret it. A year later, he was done. They drafted Kyler, and they were like, you don't got it, Josh. So I honestly think if they get the number one draft pick, I can see them moving off Kyler. I mean, let's be honest. Kyler's been a headache. I know it's a lot of money, and I understand that. But if Caleb is as good as he is projected to be, and if they believe he really is that much of a transitional talent, the greatest since we've seen come out since an Andrew Luck, which is what the people are saying, then I can see them, figuring it out. And if it's eating money or whatever the case might be, I can see them figuring it out to make Caleb an Arizona Cardinal. But we're a ways away from that. It's not just Arizona Cardinal fans that are feeling it coming into this season, Brett. There are a handful of teams that finished in last place last year. And every season, we know this. It happens like clockwork. There is at least 4 teams. This has been the case for the last 25 years. At least 4 teams that didn't make the playoffs. We know that. We also know the actual number is closer to 6. It's been as many as 8 in some seasons. But we're not talking about making the playoffs. I just want to look at last place teams from 2022 and figure out, are they still going to finish in last? Or is there some hope that they can climb out of the basement of where they finished last season and maybe finish third? I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but maybe they can finish third. So let's start with the AFC East. This might be one of the easiest ones we had this morning. It is the New York Jets. I hate the Jets. I despise the Jets. I usually have nothing positive to say about the Jets. But I also don't think the Jets are going to finish in last place. I think they're going to finish in third, behind the Buffalo Bills, who will be in second, and the Miami Dolphins, who will be in first. But we're not discussing Miami winning the division this morning, Brett. We're just going to discuss the Jets. Is there any way you see the Jets finishing last again?
I think they'll be better than the Patriots. I definitely think they'll improve. You had a team that had a really strong defense last year, and the only thing that was failing was its offense, but it wasn't lack of playmakers. It was lack of quarterback. With them tossing Mike White, they had Mike White, Zach Wilson, and whatever, the corpse of Joe Flacco occasionally got trotted out there. Like, you put in Aaron Rodgers, and even if he puts in a year like last year, that is a significant improvement over what they had last year. So this team could very easily, as long as Rodgers is playing within the flow of the offense, this team could still I think this team could easily compete for a wild card. I think the only issue with the Jets is you've got to figure out that offensive line, which apparently allowed Rodgers to get sacked 6 times against the Buccaneers.
Love it. I am here for it. I am signed up for it. I love the leaky offensive line that the New York Jets have. I don't wish injury on anyone, but I just want Aaron to get hit enough to where he stops caring. That's all. I just want the indifferent Aaron Rodgers that we've seen the last few years in Green Bay. That's what I need in New York, because the Dolphins don't play them till later in the season. So let Aaron get roughed up, not hurt. Don't miss any games, but let him get banged up the first 6 or 7 games of the season. That way, when the midway point hits and they're like 3-3 or 4-3 or 4-4, you just have the I don't give a Aaron Rodgers, because he's just angry that he keeps getting hit. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos finished last in their division. Brett, the tire fire, I think we're both going to agree on this. The Raiders are going to finish last in that division. It doesn't matter how bad Russell Wilson is. They're not going to be as bad as the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are favored to win games this season. And the Las Vegas Raiders are favored to win football games in What? There is nobody on that team. That team is literally burning right. That's mind-blowing. Do we agree the Raiders are going to finish last in that division, no matter what?
Yeah, unless like by some miracle Hunter Renfrow has like an offensive player of the year season and Derek Carr just has his MVP caliber season he did in 2016. Yeah, this team's going to be a dumpster fire.
Absolute dumpster fire happening with Raider Nation right now. And I feel bad. I feel bad for you, but it just is what it is. In the AFC North, we have the Cleveland Browns. For this one, I think the Browns are going to finish last in the division again. And I think they're going to be a little better. They went 7-10 last year. They weren't a terrible team by any stretch of the imagination, but the Steelers won 9 games, the Ravens won 10, and the Bengals won 12. I still think the Bengals and the Ravens are going to be the class of this division. And Mike Tomlin doesn't finish below 500, so I think he's going to win at least 9 games. And I don't think the Browns are going to get to 9. I think they're looking at a 7 or 8 win season. And if they do get to 9, I think they're going to lose the tiebreaker to Pittsburgh and still be in last place. Do they finish in 3rd or higher, Brett?
This one was one of the toughest for me because I do think that they have the talent to be better than Pittsburgh. I just don't think they have the coaching to be better than Pittsburgh. That's the issue. Because I want to say, like, yeah, if Deshaun Watson comes back along with Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, like, this offense looks stacked. They have Myles Garrett on the other side. This could be a really good football team. So, like, personnel-wise, I do want to say, yeah, this team will finish above Pittsburgh. But like you said, Mike Tomlin just never seems to finish below 500. He never finishes last place. So I'm gonna take the bold choice, but I'm gonna say this is the year. I think the Cleveland Browns jump them. I think they finish 3rd. Steelers finish last.
You swerved me there, Brett. I thought we lined up, and then I see what you're doing. You swerved. That's perfectly fine. The last division here in the AFC, Texans finished last in the South last season, 1 game behind the Indianapolis Colts. You would have to assume the Colts and the Texans are going to be competing for last place again. So let me ask you this, Brett. It's probably going to come down to quarterback play. So who do you have more confidence in this season as a rookie? Not throughout their career, but just season 1. Richardson or Stroud?
Stroud. I think it's pretty easily for me. And I think the Colts will finish last, and I think the big issue is I think Anthony Richardson really needed the presence of a strong run game, which I thought they were going to have until Irsay decided to go anger Jonathan Taylor to now he's taken medical leave to be away from the team again. I think that's what the biggest loss with the Taylor is. I think Richardson really needed him this year, but Irsay just had to shove his foot in his mouth, and I think that's going to sink this entire team. So I think the Texans finish 3rd, Colts finish 4th.
We've already discussed the NFC West. We agree that the Cardinals will once again, I mean, apparently they're going to go 0-17. They're not favored in a single game. So I guess they'll finish last in their division again, and then that's fine, Cardinal fan. I feel bad for you. In the NFC East, we have the Washington Commanders, 8-1 last year. They finished in last place. Do they have the ability to jump the Giants this season?
I think they do. I think they do. I think they could jump the Giants, and I very much think that they will. I think the Giants will end up finishing last this year.
Freddie's not going to like to hear that.
It's all right. He'll be on a new team by week 6. It'll be all right. But no, I think the issue with the Giants is your big off-season upgrade is Darren Waller, who when he's healthy and he's a good talent, but the issue is he's never healthy. And if he all of a sudden gets an attitude, he's shown that he'll quit on the team. So what reason do I have to believe he's not going to do the same with the Giants? And if he's not healthy and they're having an attitude issue, then that leaves what? Saquon's going to be your best receiver and your best running back again? Because that was the case last year, unless you really, really like the work of Richie James and Sterling Shepard, which I think Sterling could have a big year. I think he could break out, but there's just so many question marks on that offense that I don't feel comfortable in them at all. So I'm going to go with the Giants in last, Commanders in third.
In the NFC North, the Chicago Bears at 3-14 finished last in 2022. The Chicago Bears have the one of the top 5 greatest rushing quarterbacks of all time in Justin Fields. Don't believe me? Just ask him yourself. But do they have enough talent to overtake the Packers, I would assume? Because I think the consensus is the Vikings and the Lions will be battling it out for the division, which means if the Bears are going to come out of the basement, they're going to have to pass the Packers. Do you think the Bears have enough juice to jump over Jordan Love and the Packers and finish in third?
So, being unbiased on this one, I think
completely unbiased.
Absolutely. I think they do. I think they have the juice. The Bears are one of those teams, though, that I have to believe it when I see it because I have absolutely no faith that they'll utilize Justin Fields correctly. Because they don't seem to ever really use him correctly. They don't seem to use him to his strengths. And it's frustrating because I want to see Justin Fields succeed. I think he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in this league. And they finally got him help. They got him an offensive line this year. I think the Packers will be better than expected. And this one's really tough for me to say, but I think the Bears could jump them this year. I think the Packers could finish 4th, but I think Green Bay is going to be tougher than anybody expected this year.
That's tough. You put in the Packers, and I respect that. I respect you putting the Packers in last place. That was hard for you, wasn't it?
It really was. I just think there's so many question marks on offense with the Packers. I think their wide receiver room has potential, but potential doesn't really mean much until you show it on the field. I think the only one who actually showed much last year was Watson, and I want to see him build on that. But after that, you got Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. And then after that, we have a bunch of real no-names at like 4, 5, and 6. When it comes to receivers, our defense should be top 10, but Joe Barry's shown he doesn't actually like running real defenses until at least week 10 when his job's on the line, and then he looks like the greatest defensive coordinator of all time for the last 7 weeks of the season. So I love the Packers. I just think there's too many question marks with them coming into the year for me to actually put them anywhere above 4th place right now.
And then, Brett, I've saved the best for last. The NFC South, where there was a 3-way tie for last place last season, all one game behind the division winner who finished under 500. If you ever want to see a wild card division, my friends, this is going to be it. So technically, the Falcons finished last in their division based on tiebreakers, but they had the same record as the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers, and they all sat one game behind your 8-9 division-winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So for the sake of this segment, we have to roll with the Falcons because they were listed as the last place finisher. So, Brett, assuming the Saints roll to a division win, which seems to be the consensus happening, and I'm okay with that, that would mean that the Falcons would have to be better than either the Buccaneers, who don't have a starting quarterback apparently, or the Panthers, who are starting their rookie quarterback in the first pick of the NFL draft. Can the Falcons jump one of those two teams and not finish last this season?
I think they'll stay in last. I think the Buccaneers, as atrocious as their quarterback play is going to be, they still have a strong defense that'll prop them up. And they still have Evans, who, even though he thinks he's top 10 wide receiver, he's not, but he's still, in that top 15 area. Godwin's probably in a top 20 spot there. I think they have 2 top 20 to 25 receivers on the roster. So I think that team will be good enough to eke out more wins than the Falcons, even though it won't be pretty at times. I think the Panthers could win the division. And
if the Panthers win the division, the Saints have a new head coach next year.
Oh, easily.
No question.
Oh, absolutely. I think it'll come down to the Panthers and the Saints, honestly, and at the end of the week 17 there. Saints will be interesting. I think the real X factor is Michael Thomas back. What does he look like? How healthy is he actually? Will he come back? Because at this point, I don't know. Dude's been a ghost. I haven't seen him in so long that I'm just not sure what to expect from him. How's Alvin Kamara going to look coming off like his suspension? So this division was an absolute dumpster fire last year, and it's going to stay that way, but it's going to be interesting. But I think the Falcons remain in last.
And one of the things you pointed out was how bad the quarterback play potentially could be in this division outside of the Saints. I'm not going to put Carr in that category. I think he is that B plus caliber quarterback. So as long as he performs to what we think he will, he should be not in the same category as the other 3 starting quarterbacks in that division. But to your point, with the Tampa Bay's defense, they get those other teams 4 times. So if you have a decent defense in that division, that could be 4 wins on your schedule right there. Because your Tampa Bay's defense, you're going against the rookie quarterback twice. You're going against Desmond Ridder, who, let's be honest, isn't impressing anyone twice. So your defense with competent quarterback play from Mayfield or Trask, not great, not even good, just don't turn the ball over more than once or twice, will probably be enough with a good defensive performance against those teams to throw 4 wins on your record. So I agree with you. If your defense is good in that division, you could easily just take yourself out of the basement conversation. Now, you may not win more than 6 or 7 games for the season, but at least you're not finishing, dead last. But again, if you're Tampa Bay, maybe that's where you need to finish. Maybe you need Caleb Williams, and you're over there saying, listen, we can't be rolling next season with Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask as our starting quarterback options. We got to figure something out. Atlanta at least is okay moving forward with Desmond Ridder, and Carolina has who they perceive to be their quarterback of the future. So I'm never for a team tanking, Brett, but at the same time, again, these talents happen, once every 10 or 15 years. And if he is the guy we all think he is, when the middle of the season comes, I think you're going to have a few teams that are looking at their schedule being like, where do we think these other teams are going to get another win or 2? And where do we need to maybe rest some people? Where do we need to give them an extra day off that week so they're better rested, but also not as prepared? Because we're human, right? And I get it. You have people who are like, no, they don't do that. They wouldn't. You play the game to win the game. I hear you. But you also don't want to be irrelevant for a decade and a half because you were 1 win too many to get yourself Caleb Williams, right? I mean, look at the Miami Dolphins. We had a game against the Cincinnati Bengals where if we just lost the game in overtime, Joe Burrow's a Dolphin. That's just the way it would have worked out. But no, Fitzmagic did Fitzmagic things and essentially sealed our fate of not being in a position to get the number 1 draft pick that season. So these things happen, and I get it. When you're in the heat of the game, you're not thinking about that. But I also guarantee you that there's owners who are walking around on a Monday or a Tuesday as the team is prepping thinking, man, maybe I tell coach to give the guys an extra day this week because we got 3 games left. And if we beat this team, we're probably not getting the number. I mean, I think those conversations happen.
Oh, I agree. I think towards the end of the season, after seeing enough of Mayfield and Trask, all of a sudden we're going to see a Mike Evans hamstring injury, even though he looked perfectly healthy for the first 10 weeks. I'm sure Godwin's calf's going to be feeling a little sore, so they're going to have to rest him 2 weeks to be safe. Like I think we will see that with this team because I think they really are a quarterback away from being right back into the thick of the playoff picture. Maybe not a Super Bowl team, but they have a Super Bowl caliber defense.
Yeah.
They're like a running back away and like a quarterback away from being right back into that picture. So
I agree. I completely agree with you, Brett. Well, folks, hey, we love having you here every single morning. Coffee and Sports, hanging out with us, getting your day started on the right foot before you go on to whatever amazing things you're going to accomplish in your day. So thank you so much, everyone who came out this morning, who hit the like button, who left comments in the chat. I admit I need to be better at reading comments during the show. I 2 days in a row, I've read none. That's on me. That my goal for tomorrow is to show all the people in the comments love. So don't stop coming to the comments because I didn't show you love the past 2 days. Bring it tomorrow, and I promise I'll talk to you. I'll interact with you. I will do better, right? Every day we're going to get better. And tomorrow I will do better talking to our commenters. I see some of them yelling at me right now. It's fine. Tomorrow we can talk. Knock it off. It's okay. But I digress. Brett, it's a pleasure as always. You have the honor of taking us out today. 10 seconds is yours. Go for it.
Catch me on the morning show, Line in the Sand. Also, you're going to be catching my article soon on the network, so make sure to check us out.
Line in the Sand. I've been trying for like 2 months to get myself on that show. I've dropped the hints, Brett. I have you here in the morning show. I'm just waiting for my invite to come be online because I want to acknowledge some people. I want to acknowledge my tribal chief for one. I got things I want to say. I love me some Charlotte Flair. I know you guys are blasphemous the way you speak of the queen on that. Maybe that's why you don't want me on the show. Maybe it's because you just tear down the people that I hold in high regard, and that's why I haven't been welcomed yet. But I'm just saying. I hope one day the opportunity comes.
What are you doing next Tuesday?
I don't know, Brett. I don't know. It's not going to be that easy now. Now you're going to have to like woo me to get me on the show. Yeah, the free opportunity was already there, and y'all passed on it. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for next Tuesday. But once again, on behalf of myself and Brett, thank you so much for coming out this morning for Coffee and Sports. If you don't can't talk. I can't even talk. I'm so hyped about Line in the Sand. My words are being jumbled. If you don't do so already, please follow us on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook. Check out the website. We have such great content coming this week and next week and all the weeks to come after that. But again, this is where we want you. Every morning, this is where we need you to be, listening to us, following us. If you miss us one morning, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, let us put you to sleep at night. All right. That's what we do around here. But again, thank you for being here, Coffee and Sports, and we'll see you again tomorrow where we're going to do it all again.